Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If Transmigrated as a Kanto gym leader. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name on my Patreon page. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 461, Say Something, Stephen. Giovanni really was sensitive to the word dragon. There weren't many people he truly disliked even back when he led Team Rocket. Calm, composed, and calculating by nature, Giovanni believed that most conflicts between people came down to differing goals and ambitions. To put it bluntly, was it really wrong for him to be ambitious? He only ever wanted to conquer the world. In his eyes, there was nothing unreasonable about that. History was written by the victors, and since he'd lost, the league could paint him however it wanted, a villain, a tyrant, the embodiment of evil. That was the price a loser paid. He had always viewed the Pokemon League as an opponent, never an object of hatred. True, he looked down on some of the league's greedy higher-ups, parasites drunk on power. But even those schemers were occasionally useful to him. In a way, Giovanni actually respected people like Goodshow, the rare ones who truly dedicated themselves to improving life for both people and Pokemon. There was, however, one major exception. Lance. To Giovanni, Lance had been like a rabid dog, one that attacked Team Rocket on sight, completely unhinged. Filthy rats from the gutter. Vermin too scared to see the sunlight. That was the kind of rhetoric Lance hurled at him, and his strikes were every bit as ruthless. Even Giovanni's patience and composure couldn't stand that level of fanaticism. So yes, there were few he hated, but Lance was definitely one of them. And because of that, anything associated with dragons made him just a little bit touchy. Of course it is. I'm a dragon-type champion, Iris declared proudly, lifting her chin with confidence. She was, after all, the girl said to understand the hearts of dragons. I see. In our Kanto, no, in Johto now, we also have a dragon-type champion. I wonder how you compare to him, Giovanni said lightly, his voice smooth and magnetic. I know who you mean. But someday, I'll be just as strong as Champion Lance, Iris replied, her energy and determination shining bright. Down in Johto's Silver Town League offices, Lance nodded approvingly as he watched the broadcast. Such passion. That's what being a dragon trainer was all about. Good spirit, Giovanni said, smiling faintly. Then allow me, as your senior, to test the limits of that strength. He held up a pokeball, lips curling upward. Strictly speaking, as a member of the Elite Four, it wasn't really proper for him to talk that way to a regional champion. But this was a match, and in competition, a little pre-battle banter was perfectly normal. Especially for a spectacle like this. Besides, most of Kanto didn't see a problem. To them, Giovanni was stronger than Iris. Ha! You're kinda full of yourself, old man. Iris clicked her tongue, though she wasn't angry, just grinning, her small fangs showing. Saying stuff like that, you really think you can beat me? You're way too confident. I've trained day and night ever since that loss. I've evolved. I'm not the same person anymore. Of course, she was referring to the time she traveled to Galar to challenge Leon. And got completely obliterated. Look at the way you traumatized that poor girl, Dylan teased, glancing over at Leon 2 seats away. I might have gone a little overboard, Leon admitted, scratching his nose sheepishly. But that was my proving match, I had to represent Galar properly. At least I didn't sweep her completely, he added lamely. Oh please, Wallace said, leaning forward with an incredulous look. You're calling him harsh? Dylan, have you looked in a mirror? Don't worry, Dylan said pleasantly. I'm hoping to face you in the next round, Wallace. I'll make sure to give you my full attention. Dylan! We're friends! Wallace cried. Exactly why I'll bring my strongest team, Dylan replied, giving him a thumbs up and a dazzlingly gentle smile.
Steven. Dylan's threatening me. Say something, Steven. Wallace pleaded, shaking his best friend's arm desperately. Sorry. You're on your own. Good luck. Steven's mouth twitched, utterly unbothered. Steven. Put. Leaf, Lily, and Eileen couldn't hold back their laughter.
Even Cynthia, Leon, and a few others cracked up.
Wallace really was a walking comedy act. On the field.
I'm Giovanni, the ground-type Elite Four of Kanto, he said smoothly, one hand still in his pocket.
It's a pleasure, Champion Iris.
He tossed a pokeball casually.
A massive, feral beast slammed down onto the battlefield, a paradox Pokemon with brutal power and prehistoric fury. Great Tusk.
Truthfully, Giovanni had grown quite fond of it because it was just that strong.
Then I'll start with this. Haxorus. Iris grinned fiercely, the crown on her head gleaming.
Her crimson-scaled dragon landed in front of her, not the mightiest of the species, but still formidable in close combat.
Unfortunately, it was up against Great Tusk. Giovanni terastallized it into the ground type, then set up Sunny Day. Iris seized the opening, Dragon Claw.
And Haxorus struck, but the blow barely scratched Great Tusk's iron hide. Under the blazing sunlight, its photosynthesis activated, massively boosting its attack.
And then, it was over. One headlong rush, and Haxorus was annihilated. The dragon hit the ground and didn't get back up. Iris froze.
The entire stadium gasped.
Wah! It fainted in one hit? What is that thing? I knew it. Giovanni's aura screams powerhouse. Poor Iris, beaten in Galar, now beaten at home too. Who did she tick off? Come on, even Leon didn't hit that hard.
The crowd went wild, and the online chat exploded.
But Haxorus has decent defense. Headlong Rush doesn't even hit for super effective damage, how? Rosa gaped.
Photosynthesis boosted its attack, and terastallized stab amplified the damage, Hilda murmured.
Still. That's ridiculous. That Great Tusk might be even stronger than Leon's Rillaboom, N said, shaking his head. Iris really hit another wall. Indeed. Another brick wall.
And one no weaker than Leon.
That's my father. Silver, who Giovanni had brought along, clenched his fists in excitement. His dad was unstoppable. W.H. Watt.
Iris stared blankly at her fallen Haxorus, her mind going completely blank.
Was this even real?
When she finally came to, she took a deep breath, eyes wide with disbelief at the gleaming terastallized Great Tusk and then at Giovanni himself.
Seriously, old man. Did you have to go that hard right out of the gate? I'm dying here. Her opening ace being one shot was not part of the plan.
Giovanni met her gaze, calm as ever, one hand still tucked in his pocket. With his free hand, he gestured politely, next Pokemon, please.
Lapras came out next.
It fired an ice beam, but Great Tusk blitzed through with Wild Charge, then followed with Earthquake, dropping it instantly.
Third, Archeops.
Giovanni demonstrated the art of winning with one hand in your pocket perfectly. Feels like Giovanni's going a bit too hard today, Lily said, tilting her head as Great Tusk crushed Iris's Mega Aggron next.
That was 5 down. It wasn't like Giovanni to completely overwhelm an opponent like this, especially not a champion on home turf. Even Leaf nodded. Yeah, that's not his usual style. As the Kanto representative, he normally knew when to show restraint. Beating Unova's champion this brutally seemed excessive. Relax, Dylan said, shrugging. He knows what he's doing. He won't go for a full sweep.
After all, a 6-Pokemon sweep would have been worse than a simple shutout.
And indeed, when Iris sent out her final Pokemon, a terastallized Haxorus, Giovanni deliberately left an opening, letting it take down Great Tusk.
That alone was enough to make Alder, the fans, and the entire stadium sigh in relief.
At least it wasn't a total sweep.
Still, Great Tusk had taken out 5 Pokemon, matching Leon's Rillaboom's record.
Giovanni's final choice was Kangaskhan, which he mega-evolved to finish off Haxorus and end the match. Iris has lost all 6 Pokémon. Giovanni wins. The challenger advances to the Masters 8. The referee's voice rang out. He'd done it. Giovanni was now one of the Masters 8.
A faint smile crossed his face, clearly satisfied with the result. Iris, meanwhile, stood dazed, staring at her fallen Haxorus in disbelief.
Lost, again. And just as badly as before. Was she really that weak? Doubt crept in.
Since the World Championships began, she'd only had 2 major matches, both 2v6 losses. It was hard not to take that personally.
Maybe she really was too weak.
She lowered her gaze, deep in thought. Maybe she should test herself against a former champion like Cynthia or Wallace just to see where she truly stood.
Chapter 462. Weakest champion? Dylan hadn't known about Iris's secret battle challenge with Wallace.
But somehow, maybe on purpose, maybe not, Stephen had casually let the news slip. So, the next afternoon, behind the Unova League headquarters, a battle arena had been set up. It wasn't exactly public, but there were spectators. Iris had brought along Alder and Rosa, while Wallace arrived with Stephen and Dylan. Seeing that, Wallace felt a little more at ease. When Iris had asked him yesterday, she hadn't said he couldn't tell anyone. In truth, she'd just forgotten to. Still, he felt a bit awkward about it. But since Iris had her own support crew, it was all good.
Thank you very much, Wallace.
Please take care of me.
Iris bowed sincerely.
No matter what, she truly appreciated that Wallace had agreed to her sudden, personal challenge. No need to be so polite, Wallace replied with his usual graceful smile. But Iris, be careful.
When I'm serious, I can be very strong.
He might have been chosen as her confidence test dummy, but that didn't mean Wallace was taking it lightly. If he was going to be used as a measuring stick, he'd make sure it was one she'd never forget. Perfect. Iris grinned. That was exactly what she wanted.
I'll referee, Alder volunteered.
He couldn't help but feel sorry for the girl. Just look at her. Once a bright new champion determined to restore Unova's pride, now she'd been reduced to challenging Wallace just to rebuild her confidence. The rules were a full 6-on-6, agreed upon the day before. The random draw gave Wallace the first move. Iris, Wallace said smoothly, tossing a pokeball in hand, I am an artist of water. And though the ocean may seem calm, even its gentlest surface hides raging tides beneath. His calm, deliberate voice carried poise and confidence. Let me, Wallace, test the bond between you and your Pokémon as Unova's champion.
My first Pokémon, this one.
Every movement he made was elegant, even the way he threw the pokeball was like a performance. A burst of white light revealed a Pelipper.
Drizzle Pelipper, Iris murmured, recognizing it immediately.
Wallace had used the same lead against Blue in his previous match. As the famous water-type champion, his team was naturally built around that typing.
And Drizzle couldn't have suited him better.
After all, rain boosted water-type moves across the board.
Hydreigon, let's go.
Instead of leading with her trusty Haxorus, Iris chose Hydreigon. The three-headed dragon's guttural roar filled the field.
Dragon resists water. That was precisely why she'd chosen Wallace as her opponent.
And Hydreigon could also fly, great for maneuvering. A tough matchup, Lily observed from the sidelines. Pelipper's not exactly built for a slugfest.
Indeed, Pelipper wasn't weak, but it wasn't powerhouse material either. As a weather setter, its real job was to come in and out repeatedly, keeping the rain active. Rain clouds gathered overhead as the downpour began. Who do you think wins this one? Leaf asked curiously. If it were the old Wallace, no way he could beat Iris, Dylan said with a chuckle.
Wallace's strength had always been on the lower end among champions. In the past, he was practically the floorboard of the champion tier.
Why?
Because his team composition had been a mess.
Too many of his partners were dependent on aquatic environments, Pokémon like Tentacruel, Whiscash, and even Wylord. And really, a Wylord? That thing's so huge it can barely turn around on a standard battlefield.
Not to mention it's the biggest target in existence.
Sure, that might be fine in the games, but in real life? On solid ground?
Their effectiveness dropped hard. That was the water type's greatest flaw. Devastating in their element, but crippled without it. And in official matches, the arenas were all standardized, no ocean, no advantage. Honestly, if Champion and Elite Four power gaps weren't so wide, Wallace might not have even made it past the Hoenn Elite Four to begin with. But now Wallace was different. He had undergone a glorious evolution. He'd added a proper weather lead, swapped out his aquatic deadweights, and built a team of amphibious water types who could fight effectively on land. Pelipper, a shiny Greninja, Swampert, and even an iron bundle Dylan had gifted him, combined with his original Ludicolo, Gyarados, and Milotic, he even had an extra slot for flexibility. Wallace had been working hard to grow stronger.
So now, Dylan continued, it's not so clear-cut. The gap between them isn't that big anymore.
Iris was still a bit stronger overall, but not by much.
Wallace had always been seen as one of the weaker champions, and it was true he'd spent half his time focusing on contests instead of battle.
Meanwhile, Iris was a pure prodigy, driven, focused, and determined to improve. In the anime's World Championships, Wallace hadn't even made it into the Masters 8.
That said enough. So it all comes down to performance, Lily said thoughtfully. Exactly. And water types often carry ice moves. Iris's team is pretty weak to ice overall, Dylan added with a shrug. Plus, Wallace has that iron bundle. The ensuing battle was fierce. Both trainers fought seriously, holding nothing back.
Minute by minute, the momentum swung back and forth until finally, it came down to the last match, Iris's ace, Haxorus, versus Wallace's new ace, Iron Bundle. Both were tear it out. Wallace had never been this focused in years.
This wasn't just a match, it was a matter of pride. There was no way he could lose. He wouldn't.
He'd prove himself to this junior once and for all, show her the true strength of Hoenn's former champion, Wallace. He could already picture her starry-eyed face saying, "Wallace, you're incredible." That thought alone filled him with power.
And then, Iron Bundle is unable to battle. Haxorus wins. Wallace has no remaining Pokemon. The victor Iris. Alder's announcement hit like thunder. Wallace staggered back a step, clutching his chest, staring at his fainted Iron Bundle in disbelief. How could this happen? My pride, my honor, my very artistry. Still couldn't do it, huh? Dylan sighed. Not that he was surprised Iris beating Wallace made sense.
Honestly, if he just trained more, Steven said, rubbing his temples.
He's got talent. For a coordinator to reach champion level, that's rare.
It shows his natural skill. But Wallace simply never poured his all into training. Still, lasting until a 6v6 finish wasn't bad. Steven had expected him to be wiped out 3 to 5 Pokemon earlier.
He hadn't really believed Wallace could win anyway. That was amazing. What an awesome battle. Iris was practically glowing, sweat glistening on her forehead after that nerve-wracking finale. One move's difference had decided everything. This was what battling was supposed to feel like. Champions like Leon and Giovanni?
Ugh, those were nightmares.
Wallace, though, he was perfect.
If not for him, she might have forgotten what a proper, evenly matched battle even was.
Choosing Wallace had been the best decision of her life.
Wallace, you really are an amazing trainer.
Iris praised him sincerely. She felt so much better now.
She wasn't useless after all, just a little stronger than Wallace, maybe.
And that was fine. She was still young, with room to grow.
Thank you, Wallace said with a forced smile, his voice barely holding steady.
Iris, lost in her excitement, didn't even notice. I couldn't defend my dignity.
She'd used his defeat to restore her confidence.
Who could understand his pain? Poor Wallace, was he really the weakest champion of them all? It couldn't be. He was the artist of water, after all. He sank into thought, reviewing every region in his mind, trying to recall any champion he could confidently defeat. After careful consideration, maybe just Kalos's Diantha and Gaylor's Master Mustard. Alder? No, he couldn't bring himself to do that. And Mustard, well, he could practically be his grandfather. No, that wouldn't do either. Was he really not even Diantha's match? Wallace's eyes hardened. No, he refused to accept that. He, Wallace, would prove that he was not the weakest champion. His next target, Diantha. Chapter 463, Dylan gifted to Lily. The resonance between the primals is growing stronger, Dylan. At night, Peppa's expression was grave on the video call. I contacted Dialga. According to it, Arceus is likely to awaken soon. Dylan nodded slightly as he stroked the head of the Clefairy curled up beside him. The only reason Clefairy wasn't lying on his stomach was simple: the little thing was way heavier than it looked, and Dylan's body just couldn't take that kind of weight. Any estimate on the exact timing? He asked seriously. After all, this was Arceus they were talking about, and not just any Arceus, but one filled with resentment. Even weakened by the loss of 5 plates, it was still a being Dylan had to treat with the utmost caution. Dialga says around 3 months, Peppa replied, worry flickering in her eyes. Give or take a month at most. Got it. I'll head to Machina in 3 months, Dylan said after a pause. All right. Then I'll be counting on you, Dylan. Peppa still looked uneasy, but there wasn't much else she could do. Since Dylan said he had a way to handle it, she had to trust him. And indeed, Dylan did have a solution. The movie had already shown the answer: have Dialga use time travel to return to the past and stop Damos's betrayal. If Arceus was never betrayed, then the future would change naturally, and all misunderstandings would vanish. Simple, really. Since Dylan knew the original story, he wasn't worried in the slightest. If things could be resolved peacefully, great. If not, he had other options, including his own origin for Dialga. Relax, Dylan said with a wave of his hand. I've got this. By the way, there's something strange, Peppa said suddenly. What is it? For half a month, I couldn't reach Palkia. Then this afternoon, it finally responded, but it sounded weak, like it was barely conscious. She tilted her head in confusion. The power of the aura of Sinnoh was truly unique. It allowed her to connect with Dialga and Palkia even across different dimensions. But the connection wasn't two-way. Whether they responded was up to them. If they were emotionally unstable, Peppa could even be hurt by the backlash of their turmoil. Until today, she hadn't been able to reach Palkia for weeks. And since Dialga and Palkia didn't exactly get along, she hadn't asked Dialga about it either. But when contact was finally made, Palkia's weakened state alarmed her. Looks like it managed to escape from the reverse world, Dylan chuckled. Huh? Peppa blinked, confused. It's fine. Nothing serious. Its brother probably locked it in a dark little room for a while. Just let it rest. Dylan brushed it off casually. Giratina really was a piece of work. Unlike the time it had dragged Dialga into the reverse world at full strength in the movie, this time Palkia had been badly wounded before it was pulled in. What it suffered in that pitch-black realm, only Palkia knew. One thing was certain: it wouldn't be leaving its dimension again anytime soon. I see, Peppa said, curiosity still on her face, but seeing Dylan's lack of concern, she dropped the subject. After hanging up, Dylan casually scrolled through the latest headlines. Brother, all the Pokeballs are cleaned. Lily turned around with a sweet smile after carefully polishing the last luxury ball. Good work, Dylan said. It's no trouble. Oh, by the way, brother, there's something. Lily washed her hands, neatly placed the Pokeballs on the bedside table, and sat down shyly. What is it?
You can tell me anything, Dylan said, curious about his adorable companion.
It's like this. Mother contacted me earlier.
She asked when we'd have time to visit Alola for a family dinner. Her cheeks flushed a faint pink, eyes sparkling with anticipation.
Of course, that wasn't all Luzaman had asked. The woman had also pried into some very personal topics. Who could blame her?
Her precious daughter spent every day glued to some man, calling him brother this, brother that, and barely remembered her real family.
Ever since leaving Alola, Lily hadn't once come home. Not even during New Year's. Just a quick video call, no plans to return to Ether Paradise at all. Poor Luzaman didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Alola, huh?
You really haven't been back in a while, Dylan mused. They'd been traveling the world non-stop ever since the World Championships began, but come to think of it, they hadn't set foot in Alola once.
Of course we can go, he said at last. After we visit Kalos, we'll head there. How's that sound? Yay! Lily beamed with delight. And why Kalos first? Because there was going to be one hell of a match.
Kanto's third Elite Four member, Blue, was challenging the number 7 Master Kalos champion Serena. A true heavyweight clash. This was one of the matches Dylan had been most looking forward to. Blue, the first ever champion of the main Pokemon games, versus Serena, the champion of Generation 6.
Without question, it would be spectacular. By the way, Lily, Dylan asked suddenly, you still don't have your own Pokemon, right? Eh? Is Big Brother going to give me one? Lily giggled, tapping her lips playfully with a finger.
She didn't have a Pokemon of her own and truthfully, she didn't mind.
Taking care of Dylan's Pokemon every day was enough for her. In fact, she was their unofficial caretaker.
And safety wasn't really a concern. Not only did she spend nearly every moment by Dylan's side, but he also usually entrusted her with a few of his team's Pokeballs when they traveled. Even if something happened, his Pokemon didn't need her commands, they could handle it themselves. I think you'll really like this one, Dylan said, winking. Anything my brother gives me, I'll love, Lily thought to herself, her cheeks glowing pink. But she didn't dare say it out loud. Her radiant smile said enough. Hee then thank you in advance, brother, she chirped, voice as sweet as honey. You'll need it tomorrow, Dylan said with a grin.
Hard to believe it's already been a year. He added, glancing at her. Time really did fly.
A quick glance told him, yeah, she'd gotten a bit taller, but some parts hadn't exactly developed.
TSK must have inherited that from Luzaman.
Yeah. I still remember the day I first met you and Uncle Ito and Aunt Azalea, Lily said happily, oblivious to his thoughts. That day had been the turning point of her life when she'd been rescued by the kind couple who turned out to be far more than they seemed.
Honestly, who would believe her story? An heiress of a multi-million-dollar foundation, found on the streets and adopted by a billionaire couple. Sounded like something out of a drama series. And then... Lily. Yes, brother? It's already 9. Shouldn't you head back to your room? Dylan said with a teasing smile. Good
night, brother. Blushing furiously, she bolted from the room, leaving Dylan chuckling to himself.
Lily, Leaf, Eileen.
His smile faded slightly as his thoughts turned to what his father and mother had discussed with him and whether it was truly possible. The next day, Kalos, Archie Valley.
Welcome, Dylan. It's been a while. Kevin greeted them warmly. Sheena stood beside him, smiling brightly.
Well, not that long, Leaf said, peeking curiously past them.
So this is where you live?
Archie Valley was a hidden sanctuary, much like Meteor Falls, a secluded community of Arceus's descendants and devotees. But only a few had any real power. Kevin was the strongest among them, though still far from his ancestor Damos, who once forged the Jewel of Life.
Yes, please, come in.
Kevin led the group through the valley. There wasn't anything particularly remarkable about the place, just quaint architecture and tranquil scenery.
To Dylan, it wasn't much different from Meteor Falls.
But to Lily and Leaf, the mystique of such a hidden place was fascinating. Seizing a quiet moment, Dylan motioned for Hoopa Confined to follow him aside.
"How's it looking, Hoopa?" No problem at all,"
Hoopa said proudly, puffing its tiny chest.
"Both of them are ready."
As expected of Hoopa, reliable as ever, Dylan praised.
He, Dylan is Hoopa's best friend."
"Your business is Hoopa's business," it giggled, practically glowing with pride.
"All right then, bring them through. I'll handle the captures."
"Okay."
Hoopa ring.
Two golden portals expanded in midair, and moments later, two small Pokémon emerged.
Where are we?"
The pair tilted their heads curiously, ruby-red eyes sparkling as they looked around, communicating telepathically.
"Perfect. Two of them, just as planned." Dylan smiled in satisfaction at the sight of the cute Pokémon with brilliant gems adorning their foreheads. Lily was going to love them.
Chapter 464, Evil Dragon Who Stole the Princess.
"Sorry for summoning you here so suddenly, but could I ask for your help?" Dylan smiled warmly at the two Pokémon in front of him.
"You are?"
"My name's Dylan."
"You're both so beautiful that I wanted to ask if you'd be my partners." The two Pokémon fell silent.
Seriously, what kind of creepy human was this? He just snatched them up because they were pretty, and now he was standing there saying he wanted to team up? They didn't dare talk back, though, because behind Dylan stood a massive black and red bird glaring down at them. "Yveltal," the Pokémon said, to drain all life. "So scary." The two little Pokémon shrank back timidly. Couldn't he just talk without bringing that monster along to intimidate them? Later that day, after spending the afternoon in Archie Valley and having dinner at Kevin's house.
"Lily, this is for you," Dylan said, handing her a luxury ball.
Eh?
Lily blinked, then her face lit up with surprise and joy as she accepted it with both hands. "Thank you, brother," she said sweetly. Though Dylan had told her last night he'd be giving her a Pokémon, actually holding it in her hands made her so happy she could barely stand it. "No need to thank me," Dylan said, pinching her soft cheeks.
"Can I open it?"
"Of course.
It's yours now." He.
Lily skipped into the backyard, excitement bubbling in her chest as she opened the luxury ball. Leaf, Kevin, and Sheena followed to see what kind of Pokémon Dylan had chosen for her.
"Come on out."
A flash of light revealed a Pokémon about 0.7 meters tall.
"So cute."
Lily's eyes sparkled immediately.
Its upper body was humanoid, wearing a white dress, with ruby-like eyes and a brilliant pink gem glowing atop its head.
Its lower body was gray stone, exposing facets of raw diamond Oregon.
"Lady Lily, my name is Diancie."
"It's a pleasure to meet you," came a gentle telepathic voice, pure and refined like that of a princess. "Hello, Diancie," Lily replied, caught off guard but quickly smiling back politely.
"Diancie? It can communicate telepathically?" Lily was surprised. Pokémon with that ability were definitely not ordinary. BZZT. Diancie, Rock/Fairy type, the Jewel Pokémon. Ability, Clear Body.
Known moves, Diamond Storm, Power Gem, Skill Swap, Meteor Beam, Gravity.
Entry, a mutation of Carbink.
Its pink, glimmering body is said to be the most beautiful in the world.
Rotom Dex's entry scrolled across the screen. The most beautiful in the world? Wait, I thought that title belonged to Milotic?
Leaf tilted her head. Milotic's Pokédex entry did say it was the most beautiful Pokémon, capable of calming anger and hatred.
Well, Pokédex entries are written by different professors.
Oak may have started it, but every region adds their own notes. Different people, different opinions, Dylan shrugged.
In other words, if I wrote the Pokédex, I'd say the most beautiful Pokémon in the world is Reshiram.
Indeed, Dylan thought the white dragon was both awe-inspiring and genuinely beautiful, far more so than Milotic. And Diancie's world's most beautiful title came straight from the X and Omega Ruby entries.
True enough, Leaf agreed. Reshiram is gorgeous. It's fine either way. I think Diancie is really beautiful too, Lily said happily, admiring her new partner.
Thank you, Lady Lily, you're very beautiful as well, Diancie replied gracefully, hands folded in front of her.
Wow, she's like a noble princess, Leaf said in awe.
Diancie really did have that aura, refined tone, elegant gestures, and the poise of someone raised in a royal court. Diancie smiled modestly, but her eyes darted slyly toward Lily.
From now on, this gentle girl would be her partner. Well, she is a princess, Dylan said with a grin. Ha! Leaf blinked.
I remember a legend in Kalos about a hidden mine where many Carbink dwell, ruled by their queen, Diancie, Sheena recalled.
That's right, Dylan nodded. The legend's true. The Diamond Kingdom is a beautiful underground realm, and Diancie is its princess, a real royal.
I'm not that special, Diancie said modestly.
So she really was a mythical Pokemon?
Lily quickly put the pieces together. Then, brother, how did you even find Diancie? She asked curiously. He hadn't left her side for days, so when did he have time to search for a secret underground kingdom?
At that, Diancie's smile stiffened.
The Diamond Kingdom is well hidden, Dylan said, but Hoopa's rings are very convenient.
Ah.
So she'd been dragged here through one of Hoopa's portals. Diancie's expression froze completely, and she looked on the verge of tears.
He, Hoopa confined giggled mischievously, proud of itself.
I've already spoken with Diancie and the others, Dylan continued. They were curious about the outside world and agreed to come along. So they wanted to be our partners, he said with a grin.
Is that true, Diancie? Lily asked, skeptical.
Knowing her brother, things were rarely that simple.
And the others? Indeed, Diancie said smoothly. I've always wanted to see the outside world. This is the perfect chance.
I look forward to working with you, Lady Lily. To be fair, Dylan had given them the option to refuse.
It's just, with a massive Yveltal looming behind him, who would dare say no?
Still, the chance to explore beyond the kingdom didn't sound so bad, and Lily seemed kind and pure. Diancie could live with that.
I'm glad. Just call me Lily, okay? From now on, we're friends.
Of course, Diancie said, eyes sparkling as she curiously looked around at the world beyond her home.
Dylan, you didn't just grab one Diancie, did you? Leaf asked slyly. Of course not. I like Diancie too, Dylan said matter-of-factly, pulling out another luxury ball. Diancie.
A flash of light revealed another Diancie, but this one wore a red dress and shimmered faintly.
A shiny Diancie. He hadn't kept the shiny one for himself on purpose, it was the result of a rock-paper-scissors match between the two. He could still picture it clearly. The shiny Diancie trembling with fear, yet bravely declaring it would stay by his side to protect her little sister. He couldn't help but wonder what they saw him as. An evil dragon stealing the princess away? The shiny Diancie floated over, spotting Lily's Diancie chatting happily with her new partner.
Seeing that, she smiled, content. As long as her sister was happy, so was she.
They're both so pretty. Leaf gushed, eyes darting between them.
Though, she reminded herself, her Articuno was just as beautiful.
After spending the night at Kevin's place, Dylan and the others said their goodbyes the next morning. Hoopa opened a golden ring leading to Lumiose City.
Blue's battle with Serena wouldn't start until tomorrow, so the three spent the day exploring the city with the two Diancies, who were overwhelmed by the sights. Lily was especially delighted, walking hand in hand with them as she pointed out shops and explained city life. Large Pokemon weren't allowed to roam the streets or fly overhead, but Diancie's size made her an exception. And watching her move was adorable. Technically, Diancie floated, but she did so in a little bouncing motion, like a bunny hop.
Just like in the movie.
Next time, I'll test out Mega Diancie, Dylan said, turning the keystone over in his hand, the gem glittering brilliantly in the sunlight.
Diancie was one of the few mythicals capable of Mega Evolution.
In her regular form, she was a defensive powerhouse. But when she Mega Evolved, her stats flipped, turning her into a glass cannon with immense offensive power.
Dylan planned to use her in his next battle. Mostly because Mega Diancie was just too beautiful not to show off. The next day arrived quickly. The Lumiose Arena was packed once again.
Dylan sat in the front row with Stephen, Wallace, and others beside him. They'd practically made a habit of attending every major battle together. Watching great trainers clash was its own kind of fun. A showdown between two prodigies, Wallace said with interest.
This should be good. Yeah, Lorelei agreed. Both Blue and Serena only debuted last year and they're already monsters. Dylan, who do you think will win? Stephen asked, intrigued.
Emotionally, I've got to root for Blue, he's a good friend, Dylan shrugged.
But logically, who knows? Depends how they perform. He really couldn't call it.
He hadn't battled either of them recently, so their true strength was a mystery.
Blue versus Serena. Who would come out on top? Chapter 465, as the Kalos champion, I. As the announcer's voice boomed through the stadium, two figures slowly emerged from the opposite entrances of the Lumiose Arena.
Blue was as casually stylish as ever, purple slacks, a black high-neck shirt, and that trademark spiky hair radiating confidence. His sharp, handsome face carried an untamed pride.
Confident. Cool.
Facing him, Serena wore a sleeveless black top and a high-waisted red skirt that hugged her slim waist. Long black stockings accentuated her long legs, leaving just a glimpse of pale skin between skirt and stockings, a breathtaking, forbidden zone.
Elegant. Stunning.
As the two stars of the day took their places, the arena erupted in wild cheers.
Wow! That's the new champion of Kalos? She's gorgeous.
I hadn't paid attention before, Serena's so young.
Champion Serena for the win. TCH. Blue's the Kanto Elite Four. No way he's losing. Both of them are so young, what chance do the rest of us trainers even have?
Online, the match was trending worldwide, and the hype only kept growing.
The next round of the World Championships upper bracket begins now. Challenger, Blue from Kanto. Defender, Serena, champion of Kalos.
The referee raised his hand to explain the rules.
This will be a full 6-on-6 battle. Both trainers may use two types of power-ups. When all 6 Pokémon of the Challenger are unable to battle, the challenge ends. Battle, start.
With a respectful bow, the referee retreated from the stage. On the giant screen, portraits of both trainers appeared as the pointer spun to decide who would take the first move. Blue stood casually, one hand in his pocket, the other twirling a minimized pokeball between his fingers. Serena's pretty face was serious, her eyes fixed on the screen.
She wasn't wearing her usual hat today.
Her long hair was tied back in a ponytail.
That was her battle mode.
Whenever she faced a powerful opponent, she always tied up her hair. She'd done the same when she challenged the Kalos League at the end of last year.
It meant she was going all out. The pointer stopped on Blue's side. "Heh, looks like I'm up first." Not that it matters. Blue grinned, eyes flashing with the sharp intensity of a predator. Let's see what kind of strength the Kalos champion really has. He flicked his wrist, throwing his pokeball high. With a sharp cry, a majestic Pidgeot spread its enormous wings and swooped through the air, circling before landing before Blue, its piercing eyes locked onto Serena.
"Don't disappoint me," Blue said, catching the returning pokeball with a smirk.
"I've been looking forward to this." "You'll see for yourself," Serena replied firmly, her big brown eyes gleaming. "The strength of me, the champion of Kalos." She'd always been modest, knowing she still had room to grow. But as a ranked master class trainer, she knew strong opponents would come sooner or later, and she'd prepared for that. She wouldn't lose. Not to Blue of the Kanto Elite Four. "My power comes from the bond one share with my Pokémon, and that's not something anyone can beat." Serena drew a Pokeball and threw it. Meowstic. A flash of light, and a blue and white feline Pokémon appeared, standing gracefully on 2 legs. Most of its body was white, while its ears, neck, legs, and tail base were deep blue. Its golden eyes were calm and cold, showing no emotion. A female Meowstic, huh? Blue narrowed his eyes.
He'd studied this species, though he hadn't battled one often.
BZZT.
Meowstic, female, psychic type, the constraint Pokemon.
Ability, Keen Eye. Known moves, Misty Terrain, Psychic, Imprison, Fake Out, Baton Pass. Entry, when it unleashes its full psychic power, it can tear apart a cruise ship.
Its cold demeanor is part of its charm, female form.
Looks strong, Lily murmured from the audience as Rotom Dex finished its readout.
On another side of the stands, Giovanni and Red sat side by side, watching intently.
It's just a cute little cat, Blue thought to himself.
But against my Pidgeot.
He quickly ran through strategies in his mind, then decided to strike first. Aerial Ace. Blue's style had always been aggressive.
This was his first time facing Serena, so intel was limited, but the same was true for her.
If they were both in the dark, then there was no point holding back.
Pidgeot screeched and raised its wings for an attack.
Fake Out. Serena commanded sharply. Meowstic's golden eyes flashed.
Her body blurred into a white streak, vanishing from sight.
The normal type move Fake Out.
In an instant, Meowstic dashed beneath Pidgeot and leapt upward.
Smack!
Pidgeot's head snapped back from a clean slap before it could even flap its wings, its attack cancelled and its body recoiling midair.
TCH, Blue clicked his tongue. Fake Out, such a nuisance. Yawn. Serena didn't hesitate. Yawn? Blue frowned.
Still suspended in the air with psychic power, Meowstic let out a long, deep yawn. A wisp of white energy floated toward Pidgeot. The bird had just recovered from its flinch, no time to dodge. The yawn drifted into Pidgeot's body, making it reflexively yawn back before shaking its head, regaining focus.
But everyone knew what was coming next.
Yawn, a normal type move that makes the target drowsy.
The opponent will soon fall asleep. A delayed sleep effect, once you're hit, it's inevitable. Troublesome, Blue muttered. He understood Serena's strategy perfectly. Fake Out followed by Yawn.
A practiced combo, clearly something they drilled countless times.
And then. Calm mind, Serena ordered.
Meowstic's eyes glowed blue as waves of psychic energy shimmered around her, boosting her special attack and special defense.
Just as Serena had expected, Blue didn't risk attacking.
He recalled Pidgeot in a beam of red light. Smart move, Serena said softly, pressing her lips together.
Much tougher than Diantha ever was. Blue's quick on the draw, Leon commented from the viewing area.
Exactly, Dylan agreed. We can see the strategy clearly from here, but it's a lot harder when you're in the arena yourself. If he'd kept Pidgeot in to attack during Calm Mind, Dylan explained, the yawn would have triggered mid-fight, putting Pidgeot to sleep and leaving it vulnerable.
Lily tilted her head. So recalling it early was better?
Right, Dylan said with a smile.
Now it's safely awake.
If he'd waited, Pidgeot would have fallen asleep the moment he switched.
Leon nodded. Good judgment. Serena had deliberately used Calm Mind to bait him, but Blue wasn't taking the risk.
She looks so elegant, Wallace said, but her battle tactics are vicious.
Hearing their analysis, he couldn't help but grin.
This match is going to be incredible.
And it's only just begun.
On the field, Blue replaced Pidgeot with his powerhouse, Tyranitar. The dark type was a perfect counter to a psychic Pokemon like Meowstic, but Serena smoothly used Baton Pass, swapping in Chestnut, Kalos's grass-type starter. Chestnut's secondary fighting type was exactly what made it a threat to Tyranitar's 4x fighting weakness.
Blue grimaced.
This matchup was brutal. Tyranitar excelled in close combat, but a quadruple weakness was a deadly flaw.
So he acted instantly, Terra Stylization. Rock Terra type. Now Tyranitar's weakness to fighting was only double. Serena responded just as decisively, Gigantamax.
The massive Chestnut loomed over the field, fists glowing with fighting energy.
Max Knuckle. The colossal strike left Tyranitar nowhere to run, but Blue didn't flinch. Use Aerial Ace. The terastallized Tyranitar charged head-on, its wings slicing through the air.
Even with doubled HP from Gigantamax, Chestnut's huge body made it difficult to evade, and it was 4 times weak to flying. After 3 thunderous exchanges, 3 max knuckles for 3 aerial aces, both sides were battered, but in the end, Chestnut fell. It was a brutal trade, the crowd roaring with excitement. Still, Blue had taken the first round. As expected of a Kalos prodigy, Giovanni muttered approvingly.
That was impressive. Tyranitar held on even through 3 Gigantamax attacks. But the cost was clear. Tyranitar was badly weakened, each max knuckle raising Chestnut's attack before it went down. Serena wasted no time, sending out her Vaporeon.
In a flash, the water type dashed forward, quick attack, then Hydro Pump, taking down the exhausted Tyranitar.
The score was even again.
Blues really met his match this time, Giovanni said with a quiet laugh, glancing at the ponytail champion whose refined face was now set in fierce determination. Red said nothing, his crimson eyes reflecting something unreadable.
Chapter 466, 8 Strongest Trainers in the World. The battle raged on. Blue could feel the pressure mounting.
Throughout his journey, he'd faced countless high-stakes matches that made his heart race against Agatha, Lance, Giovanni, all powerful opponents who had once forced him to his limits. But among his peers, the ones who could truly push him were rare. Dylan, perhaps, counted as one, but among his true equals, only Red had ever truly made him feel this way.
Until now.
Standing before him was Serena, the refined, confident champion of Kalos. And she was pushing him harder than anyone had in a long time. No matter how sharply he battled, he couldn't gain an overwhelming lead. If he slipped up even slightly, the momentum would tilt against him. It had been a while since Blue had felt such a rush, and it was thrilling. Before either of them realized it, the battle had reached its climax. Blue's Arcanine had just defeated Serena's Delphox. That left her with only one Pokémon remaining. Phew! Serena exhaled softly, gripping her last Pokeball. Her pale cheeks were flushed, not from exhaustion, but from exhilaration. She was enjoying this an evenly matched fight between equals. I can hardly believe it, she said, her voice clear but edged with wonder.
Blue of the Kanto Elite Four, and you're only the third among them? She didn't throw her Pokeball right away.
She just stared at him, genuinely impressed.
She had always known Blue was strong.
But she had expected to win.
She believed she would win. Now, she wasn't so sure.
Serena still had faith in herself, champions must, but she couldn't deny the sheer force of the opponent standing across from her.
The third of the Kanto Elite Four, was this strong? That was absurd.
She'd heard the Kanto Elite Four were formidable, but only now did she understand.
Ha!
I'll tell you one thing, Blue said, smirking proudly. I'm not staying in third place for long. I'll knock Red and Giovanni off their thrones soon enough.
And then I'll be at the top. Serena almost laughed, but restrained herself out of poise and respect.
I must admit, you're strong, Serena, Blue continued.
But the winner of this battle will be me.
Oh? Serena replied with a gentle, confident smile.
That's exactly what I was about to say to you, Blue.
With that, she threw her final Pokeball. I'll be the one who claims victory in the end. Prepare to fall before my ace. A brilliant white light burst forth, and when it faded, a sleek, snow-white Pokémon with an icy aura stood before her. Absol.
Absol, huh? Blue narrowed his eyes.
Yes, Serena said, her hand moving to her keystone bracelet.
My strongest partner.
Absol raised its head proudly, locking eyes with Arcanine.
Our bond will carry us to victory, Serena declared.
The keystone in Absol's megastone began to resonate, glowing with intertwining light. A surge of radiant energy enveloped Absol, and when it faded, Mega Absol stood in its place, elegant, fierce, and exuding overwhelming power.
Blue's expression grew serious. This was no ordinary Pokémon. BZZT. Mega Absol, Dark-type, Disaster Pokémon. Ability, Magic Bounce.
Moves, Parish Song, Future Sight, Swords Dance, Sucker Punch, Night Slash, Detect. Entry, the power of Mega Evolution radiates from it like a terrifying aura, those weak of heart may die from fright. Whoa. So that's Serena's ace, Lily murmured from the stands, staring in awe. It's beautiful.
Indeed, the gleaming white Mega Absol commanded the arena's attention.
Blue didn't switch out his Arcanine. It was one of his most trusted Pokémon, and though worn down, he intended to test Mega Absol's strength head-on.
Extreme speed. Blue commanded. Use Sucker Punch. Serena countered instantly. The two Pokémon lunged simultaneously, but Absol's move went off first.
The Dark-type Priority Strike interrupted Arcanine's charge, slamming into it before it could move. Then, following seamlessly, Mega Absol's Night Slash hit home, sending Arcanine crashing down.
Blue clenched his teeth. There was no denying it, Mega Absol was incredibly strong.
And now, both sides were down to their last Pokémon.
Blue tossed his final Pokeball. Let's end this, Blastoise. The massive turtle emerged, water cannons gleaming under the lights. Mega Evolve.
Light flared once again, and soon Mega Blastoise stood ready, its central cannon humming with focused energy.
The crowd held its breath. A duel between two Mega Evolutions, this was it.
The two trainers exchanged silent nods.
The final battle began. Wave after wave of powerful moves clashed, Hydro Pump, Night Slash, Aura Sphere, Detect. Both Pokémon were bruised and battered, their breathing labored. Finally, Serena saw her chance. Mega Absol. Quick attack to close the distance. Then use Night Slash.
The white flash of light streaked forward. Mega Absol ducked under a Hydro Pump, twisting midair to strike. But at the last instant, Mega Blastoise's head snapped back into its shell. The slash struck only hardened shell, sparking harmlessly.
Serena's eyes widened.
From inside the shell, energy flared.
Now! Aura Sphere! Blue shouted. Mega Blastoise's main cannon fired first, Serena barely managed to have Absol dodge with Detect.
But then, from its smaller shoulder cannons, two more Aura Spheres fired at perfect angles.
Boom! Boom! They struck dead on, blasting Mega Absol backward. Fighting type energy, super effective against dark types. The smoke cleared.
Mega Absol had reverted to its normal form, lying unconscious on the field.
Absol is unable to battle. Blastoise wins. Since Serena's team is unable to continue, the winner, Blue from Kanto. The referee's voice echoed across the arena. The crowd exploded. Blue. Kanto's Elite Four, our champion. Serena, oh no. She was so close.
If she'd used Thunder instead of closing in, she might have won.
What a shame, that was incredible, though.
The air was filled with cheers and sighs alike.
Blue actually did it, Leaf whispered, smiling brightly. That's my teammate. Dylan nodded approvingly. Very composed till the end.
Using Blastoise's shell to mitigate physical damage, smart play.
He remembered how he had once underestimated Red's Blastoise the same way, and paid for it. Impressive, Wallace added. That makes 3 Kanto trainers who've reached the Masters 8.
Indeed, Blue's victory had pushed him into the top 8, while Serena dropped to 8th, and Giovanni fell to 9th. The World Championships were merciless. If someone climbed, someone else fell.
To stay on top, you had to keep fighting.
But even with Giovanni bumped out, the fact that 3 Kanto trainers had entered the Masters 8 was astounding.
On the field.
I did it, Blue whispered, then grinned broadly at the giant screen showing his portrait.
Grandpa, cousin. Tracy, you guys see this? He clenched his fist, excitement blazing in his eyes. I'm in the Masters 8. In the audience, Professor Oak couldn't hold back his pride. Ha ha ha. That's my grandson.
Tracy cheered, while Eileen smiled softly, watching Blue's triumphant face with warmth in her eyes. Congratulations, Blue, Serena said quietly, walking up to him after recalling Absol. Though her heart ached with disappointment, she held her head high, as a champion should.
Thanks, Blue replied with rare humility. You were amazing, Serena.
He could be arrogant, but never when respect was due.
I'll remember this battle, Serena said firmly. Next time, I won't lose.
Bring it on, Blue replied, eyes blazing. I'll never back down from a challenge.
If I can beat you once, I can beat you again. That was Blue's creed.
Though, admittedly, that creed didn't always hold up, especially when it came to Red. He didn't know why, but lately, Red's growth had been terrifying. Once, they were even rivals, 50-50.
Now,
Blue's win rate had dropped below 30%.
Had Red been training on Mount Silver non-stop or something? Blue didn't know. And honestly, didn't care right now.
He turned his head and found his rival in the stands. With a proud grin, he mouthed silently.
From today onward, I'm one of the 8 strongest trainers in the world.
Red's eyes narrowed beneath his cap. He didn't like that smirk one bit.
Maybe tonight, it was time to pay Blue a visit for a little training. Chapter 467, Names Contain Colors.
The news that Kanto's Elite Four member Blue had defeated Serena and risen into the Masters 8 spread rapidly across the world. Shock, pride, admiration, envy, countless reactions filled the networks of every region.
Of course, none of that mattered to Blue.
Or rather, he enjoyed the admiration.
As for the doubters, he couldn't care less.
What he savored was the pure joy and pride of reaching the summit.
For someone like Blue, the world's noise could never shake his will.
Once he decided on a path, he would walk it without hesitation unless, of course, he suffered a truly devastating loss.
Just like in the games, Professor Oak had always thought Blue's philosophy toward Pokémon was flawed.
He was strong, yes, but he had long seen his Pokémon merely as tools to reach the top. It wasn't until he lost to Red in the championship match that he began to realize how wrong he might have been. In a large private dining room at a hotel, many notable figures had gathered. The Dillon family of 3, Professor Oak's family of 4, along with Giovanni, Red, Steven, and others.
Congratulations, Blue, Dillon said warmly, raising his glass. You've reached one of the peaks of the world. Indeed, Blue's entry into the Masters 8 meant he now stood among the strongest trainers alive.
And considering he was only 17 years old, that was far beyond the word prodigy. A remarkable junior, Leon said, giving him a thumbs up.
Challenge me next time. I always enjoy battling promising young trainers. Steven smiled as well.
I'll look forward to our match, too.
The Pokémon League might be divided by regions, but the strongest trainers all shared the same unspoken camaraderie.
Sure.
There'll be chances, Blue said, clearing his throat and raising his own glass in return.
Arrogant though he was, Professor Oak had taught him proper manners. And Blue was no fool, he could tell these champions were offering him goodwill.
When are you coming back to challenge my Rhoda Gym, Blue?
I've been waiting quite a while, Dillon teased. Ever since Blue had earned Rhoda's badge last year, he hadn't come back. After the World Championships, Blue muttered.
Not going there for now.
He did want Rhoda's other type badges, but defeating Dillon's main team was no small feat. Last time, he had beaten 2 of Dillon's main Pokémon. That meant that if he wanted a second Rhoda badge, he'd need to improve enough to defeat 3.
Beating a fully serious Dillon wasn't easy, and Blue knew it.
That's not like you at all, Blue, Dillon said in surprise.
You're an exception, Blue shot back, rolling his eyes.
He still remembered his misery from facing Dillon's Dark-type team first and Grass-type team second. Pure torture. Professor Oak chuckled softly, while Wallace and the others nodded in agreement. Speaking of which, Kalos champion Diantha asked curiously, Giovanni and Blue have both challenged for the Masters 8.
What about Red and Leaf?
Everyone turned to look. Giovanni and Blue's recent performances had really put the Kanto Elite Four in the spotlight. Don't look at me, Leaf said with a carefree grin.
I'm just here to make up the numbers. Once Celine finishes her training, I'll retire and give her my spot. Even Professor Oak couldn't help but smile.
What a free-spirited girl. Besides, Leaf added, licking her ice cream, I'm not even in the top 15.
Can't challenge the Masters 8 anyway.
To qualify for a Masters challenge, you had to rank at least 15th worldwide.
With your strength, I'm sure you could make top 15, Giovanni said with a low chuckle. Battling's tiring, Leaf replied instantly, blinking innocently. I'll leave the heavy lifting to you guys. That got a few laughs.
She really meant it, though she'd already decided to hand her position to Celine once the girl was ready.
So, Red, Diantha said, still smiling gracefully as she lifted her tea, are you planning to challenge next? Everyone's eyes turned to the silent boy in the cap.
Red instinctively lowered his head, tugging the brim of his hat down to hide his face. Being the center of attention like this made him want to vanish on the spot. Yes, he finally murmured, just to stop everyone from staring.
Giovanni challenged the 8th-ranked trainer, Blue the 7th, Diantha continued softly. So you're aiming for the 6th seat, then?
Yes.
Red's gaze flickered briefly toward Blue, then back down.
Honestly, he had wanted to challenge Blue first, give his childhood rival a proper congratulations. But that felt a bit too deliberate. And besides, he was the second of the Kanto Elite Four, why would he challenge the third? It should be the other way around. So instead, Red had decided to challenge the current 6th-ranked trainer, Paldea champion Gita.
So it's finally my turn, then?
Gita said with a calm smile. I'll be waiting for you in Paldea. I'm looking forward to our match, Red. Red raised his head slightly, eyes burning beneath his cap. The Paldea champion, she'd be a great opponent. He could already feel the thrill of their future battle. Serena, watching from nearby, bit her lip. If Red ranked above Blue, then he was even stronger. The world really was overflowing with geniuses. She needed more training, much more. Her 8th-place Masters rank was already unstable, and if Red won his challenge, she'd fall out of the Masters 8 entirely. She needed stronger teammates, faster.
Pseudo-legendaries? Paradox Pokemon? Ultra Beasts?
She was already thinking through her options.
Diantha, noticing the look in Serena's eyes, sighed inwardly.
That loss to Blue must have hit her harder than she let on.
Haha, isn't this great? Alder laughed, clinking glasses with Giovanni and Steven.
Every few days there's another amazing match to watch.
Retirement life is wonderful. The World Championships were the best idea ever.
The mood in the room was warm and cheerful, helped along by Alder's easygoing energy.
By the way, Wallace said suddenly, resting his chin on his hand, your names are all rather interesting, aren't they? Ha! Blue blinked.
Everyone paused their chatter, turning toward Wallace.
Think about it, Wallace said with a smile. Blue, Red, Leaf. Did your parents coordinate those names on purpose?
The 3 Kanto trainers froze, then exchanged looks.
Right? Leon laughed. I was just thinking the same. Red, green, blue, all color names.
Fire, grass, and water, too, it's almost symbolic. Pure white palette town, home of Professor Oak, who gave new trainers their first partners fire, grass, and water starters.
The symbolism was perfect. Surely that can't be a coincidence? Red tilted his head. Blue looked at Professor Oak in confusion. Leaf frowned thoughtfully. Probably just coincidence? Professor Oak said uncertainly. I didn't name them, you know.
Wallace chuckled. Still, it's funny all of you color-named kids turned out to be ridiculously talented.
Maybe there's some kind of hidden bonus?
He grinned playfully. What's next? Trainers named Yellow, Silver, Gold, or Violet? But when he saw the expressions of Leaf, Giovanni, and even Professor Oak suddenly shift,
Wallace's smile froze. Wait. Don't tell me there are?
Giovanni's deep, amused voice answered, Silver is my son. He just started his journey not long ago.
And Yellow is my gym apprentice, Dylan added with a laugh.
She also just set out on her own recently.
She, like me, Lance, and Giovanni, was blessed by Viridian Forest. Honestly, I think she'll be this year's best rookie.
Hey now, Dylan, that sounds like you're underestimating my son, Giovanni said with a smirk.
Not at all, Dylan chuckled. Silver's also my student.
But let's be real, you know how freakish Yellow's power is.
Giovanni sighed.
That's fair. Yellow's abilities were absurd.
If not for her, Giovanni would have easily voted his own son as Rookie of the Year.
And both of them got their starter Pokemon from me, Professor Oak added cheerfully.
Dylan isn't exaggerating, they're both little monsters in their own right.
As for Violet, I've never heard of one, Oak continued, but I do know of a gold. A boy named Ethan from New Barktown in Jotto Elm says he's got great potential. Wallace stared, dumbfounded.
He'd just been joking, and now 3 more color-named prodigies had popped out of nowhere? This generation is insane. Alder muttered. What's in the water in Kanto, anyway? 3 new prodigies all at once? What are you thinking? Stephen asked, noticing Wallace's contemplative look. Stephen. Yeah? Do you think it's too late for me to change my name to something with a color in it? Maybe I can get that talent buff too. Stephen blinked. Chapter 468, Am I really the weakest regional champion?
The party went on for quite some time before everyone finally dispersed. As soon as he returned to the hotel, Red immediately submitted his challenge request on the app to battle Gita, the 6th-ranked trainer in the Masters 8.
The news spread instantly.
In truth, many people had already been waiting for it. After all, with both Giovanni and Blue from Kanto's Elite Four having already bared their fangs, there was no way Red would sit still.
But that wasn't the only shocking development.
From Gaylor came another bombshell, Champion Leon, ranked No. 4 in the Masters 8, had officially challenged Steven, ranked number 3. Another clash between 2 regional champions. Of course, few were surprised.
Leon was famously battle-hungry, it was inevitable that he'd challenge both Steven and Cynthia.
If anything, it was strange he hadn't done it sooner. These 2 upcoming matches instantly became the most anticipated battles in the world. Yet behind the scenes, another meeting was taking place.
Miss Diantha, how about a friendly match?
Wallace asked with a disarming smile once the gathering had ended. That's not impossible, Diantha replied after a pause, eyeing the elegant former Hoenn champion curiously. It was strange, though.
Why a friendly match?
If he wanted to battle her, he could have just issued an official challenge, their rankings weren't that far apart.
Was he trying to gauge her strength first? That seemed unnecessary.
Neither of them were even in the Masters 8. Standing beside him, Steven pinched the bridge of his nose and quietly stepped a few paces away.
Wonderful. Then shall we set it for tomorrow?
Wallace said brightly, his eyes sparkling. He would use this battle to prove that he was not the weakest champion.
Very well.
You can contact me tomorrow, Diantha replied politely with a smile. I have something to discuss with Dylan, so I'll take my leave.
Of course. Goodbye. As Diantha and Serena walked off, Wallace smiled after them dreamily. Miss Diantha really is such a kind person. You sure about that? Steven said dryly.
If you lose to her, you'll officially have no one left below you. Wallace's confident grin didn't waver.
Oh, come on, Steven. Diantha's busy acting in films half the time, she hardly has time to train her Pokemon properly.
Right, Steven chuckled.
And you're so much better? That's different, it's art.
Besides, trust me, tomorrow I will win.
I can go 50-50 with Iris, remember?
His confidence was unwavering. Iris might have fallen from the Masters 8, but she'd once been one of them.
If he could go even with her, then Diantha should be no problem. You will win? Stephen asked skeptically. I will win, Wallace declared firmly.
Meanwhile, Dylan and his companions had returned to their hotel.
Dylan, Diantha called out as she and Serena approached. What is it, Miss Diantha? He asked curiously.
Sorry to bother you, but may we have a word? She said politely, smiling with practiced grace. Serena's cheeks were faintly flushed. She'd sneaked a sip of red wine at dinner, and it showed adorably on her fair face.
Of course, Dylan replied.
They found seats in the hotel lobby. You saw the battle today, Diantha began.
What do you think, Dylan? Miss Serena is still an excellent trainer, Dylan said with an easy smile. It was true, the match between Blue and Serena had been extremely close.
Blue had simply performed a bit better at the end, that was all. But I want to become stronger, Serena said suddenly, raising her head to meet his gaze. Her clear, determined eyes reflected Dylan's image back at him. Strength comes from your own effort, Dylan said gently.
But I think I understand why you're both here.
Serena was clearly driven. The loss to appear like Blue had undoubtedly stirred something within her. And for a champion-level trainer to continue growing, there were only a few possible paths left: intense training, guidance from someone stronger, or obtaining more powerful Pokémon.
Paradox Pokémon and Ultra Beasts, Diantha said plainly. Both discovered by you, Dylan, and you have access to their habitats. Exactly. The simplest way to grow stronger was reinforcement. Diantha had little choice.
Right now, the honor of Kalos rested solely on her and Serena's shoulders.
And with Serena's defeat today, they both needed to improve. Of course, Diantha knew her own limits.
Even with a Paradox Pokémon or Ultra Beast, she was unlikely to reach Master's level again.
But Serena? Serena had the talent to do it. I do have them, Dylan admitted. With Miss Serena's ability, she could even visit Area Zero herself. It wouldn't be impossible. He gestured, and his Rotom Dex floated over, displaying entries for both Ultra Beasts and Paradox Pokémon.
The Ultra Space was far more dangerous than Area Zero. Even a champion could struggle to make it out safely. But Area Zero, while slightly better, was still perilous enough that no one could call it safe. Still, Dylan said with a warm smile, I'd like to do you both a favor.
You can each choose one that you like.
If Diantha had gone out of her way to ask him, he was happy to return the kindness.
Miss Serena is already remarkable, he added. With the right reinforcement, her potential is limitless.
I look forward to the day she comes to challenge me. He truly meant it. Serena's champion team was, by all accounts, ordinary. Yet she had trained them so well that she could stand toe-to-toe with Blue. Proof that there really were no weak Pokémon, only weak trainers.
Thank you very much, Champion Dylan, Serena said, standing and bowing deeply.
No need to be so formal, Dylan said, motioning for her to sit.
He then gave both of them a brief rundown of the available Ultra Beasts and Paradox Pokémon. In the end, Diantha chose a Roaring Moon, and Serena selected Pheromosa. Both made their decisions instantly, love at first sight, so to speak. Thank you, Dylan.
If you ever need anything, you can always reach out to us, Diantha said, accepting the Pokeball containing Roaring Moon.
And if I do,
I won't hesitate, Dylan replied with a smile. After a few more words, they said their goodbyes.
It was already getting late. See you, Dylan waved. Bye.
As his group disappeared into the elevator, Diantha looked down at the Pokeball in her hand.
Dylan really is generous, she said softly. She'd heard that he'd gifted Paradox Pokémon to Cynthia and Steven before, and now it was her turn. Champion Dylan truly wants us to become stronger, Serena said, clutching Pheromosa's Pokeball tightly.
She wouldn't disappoint him.
She would grow stronger and someday challenge him head-on.
You're right, Diantha said with a laugh.
Someone like Dylan must get bored without worthy opponents. By the way, Serena, are you planning more reinforcements? I've asked someone to keep an eye out for a pseudo-legendary for me.
Oh?
You're aiming for a Gudra? My own Gudra recently had. No, Miss Diantha. I'm looking for a Dragapult, Serena said tactfully. Gudra just didn't appeal to her. Honestly, she couldn't help but wish her home region's pseudo-legendary was anything else.
Serena, that's a little hurtful, you know, Diantha said with mock offense. Miss Diantha, maybe you should focus on your battle with Wallace tomorrow, Serena said quickly as they walked toward the exit. They both lived in Lumio City, after all.
Still, it's strange, Diantha mused aloud. Why did Wallace suddenly want to spar with me?
She couldn't figure it out but decided it didn't matter.
Well, it'll be good practice anyway. I'm actually looking forward to it. The next day. What on earth happened to Wallace?
When Dylan and his companions arrived at the agreed location, they found the usually flamboyant coordinator pale, dazed, and muttering to himself.
He'd been perfectly fine yesterday, what on earth had happened overnight? Stephen sighed, rubbing his temple.
He has, about 2 days like this every month.
Don't worry about it. Dylan raised an eyebrow.
Still, he stepped closer, concerned. Wallace was a good friend, after all.
How could this happen? It shouldn't be possible. Am I really that weak? Wallace murmured to himself, eyes unfocused. Across the field, Diantha offered an embarrassed but polite smile.
She hadn't expected this reaction either.
Yes, she had beaten him. Fair and square.
Their friendly match that morning had been a full 6-on-6 battle, and Wallace had lost again.
Stephen could only sigh in sympathy. First Iris, now Diantha. And next time? There might not even be anyone left for him to lose to. Chapter 469, Treasures of Ruin. Paldea Region.
Through the golden rings provided by Hoopa Confined, Dylan and his companions arrived in Messagoza, the largest city in Paldea. The Paldea League was located just nearby, and it was also where Red's upcoming challenge against Gita would take place. But the most striking landmark in Messagoza was undoubtedly the Naranja Academy, an institution with over 800 years of history. It was one of the world's most prestigious academies. Even Stephen and the others were curious about this ancient school.
Arvin. Dylan, long time no see.
Under Gita's guidance, Dylan's group was granted a tour of Naranja Academy, during which he contacted Arvin.
Nimona and Juliana were both away, pursuing their next-ranked challenges in the World Championships.
Arvin himself had no interest in competition, and besides, he hadn't forgotten the task Dylan had entrusted to him. I made sure to finish my history course.
Professor Ryford told me more about the treasures of ruin.
It's not entirely confirmed yet, but what we do know is that they're currently sealed away. Arvin unrolled a map on his desk as Dylan's group gathered in his classroom. Thank you for going through the trouble, Dylan nodded. Of course, he already knew most of this. There are 4 treasures of ruin in total, and they're sealed in 4 different corners of Paldea, Arvin said, pointing to 4 circles marked on the map. These locations are based on Professor Rayfort's research. They're approximate, not exact. I was planning to check them out myself, and if they turned out to be real, I'd have contacted you. No need for that, Dylan replied, patting Arvin on the shoulder.
The general area is enough. Thanks, Arvin. It's nothing. I owe you everything.
If it weren't for you, Arvin's voice dropped as he thought of his late parents. Oh, and even if we find the shrines, we can't release them unless the seals are undone, he added quietly.
That's fine, Dylan said with a small smile. I have my ways. Finding the shrines was the only part that mattered. As for how to unseal them, that wasn't a problem.
In the games, one would need to remove 8 stakes for each shrine.
Dylan didn't have that kind of time.
Yeah, that sounds like you, Arvin said with a small laugh. After marking down the rough locations of the 4 shrines, Dylan wasted no time.
He summoned Reshiram outside Messagoza and soared westward. After about an hour of flight, they reached the West Province, Area 1. Peppa, could you give me a hand? Try sensing where the shrine might be.
Dylan patted his backpack, waking up the sleepy Clefairy nestled inside.
Peppa poked out a round little head and began to radiate psychic energy, scanning the area for anything unusual.
Before long, her senses led them to the base of a tall mountain.
So that's the shrine? Lily asked curiously, gazing at the circular structure built into the mountainside.
It resembled a great stone gate, bound tightly with 4 massive iron chains.
That's right.
This is the Ice Wren Shrine, Dylan said, turning a luxury ball in his hand as he observed it. During the Paldine Empire, a merchant sold 4 treasures from a distant eastern land to the king: a vessel, a sword, a tablet, and a bead.
But that very night, the treasures transformed into Pokémon and brought ruin to the royal capital. It's said that they were Pokémon all along.
Over the ages, they absorbed so much greed and malice that when the king's own desire touched them, they awoke.
Dylan calmly recounted the ancient legend.
The treasures of ruin, the name itself doesn't sound benevolent, Lily murmured.
What happened after that? Leaf asked, clearly intrigued.
Afterward, the king summoned Pokémon tamers to subdue them. Each was sealed within its own shrine using 8 stakes. Dylan shrugged, then chuckled lightly. And apparently, only those with pure hearts, free of wicked thoughts, can break the seals.
He wasn't sure if that was true.
In the games, the protagonist, Juliana, was certainly pure-hearted, but Dylan knew he wasn't.
Still, that didn't matter. He wasn't planning to use the proper method anyway.
Terrapagos. He tossed the luxury ball, and the adorable little turtle appeared before him, yawning. Terrapagos, please clear away those chains.
Terra.
The small creature straightened up, glowing brilliantly as it transformed into its terrestrial form. It opened its mouth, unleashing a 3-pronged blast of fire, ice, and lightning that tore through the shrine's chains.
Boom!
The explosion echoed through the mountain, smoke rising thickly into the air. When it cleared, the chains had been shattered to bits. A pale golden light and chilling air began to seep out from within the shrine.
It's coming out, Dylan said with a grin.
With a low growl, a sleek white shape leapt from the shrine, landing before them.
Its icy blue eyes fixed coldly on Dylan and his companions. What is that? Lily blinked.
She thought it was beautiful, in a fierce sort of way. It resembled a snow leopard, its fur pure white, with pale blue diamond-shaped crystals embedded in its body, and the most striking feature of all were the broken sword blades extending from its jaws like fangs.
It was none other than Qianpao, one of the treasures of ruin. Beep Qianpao, Dark/Ice type. The disaster Pokémon. Ability: Sword of Ruin.
Notable moves: Sheer Cold, Sacred Sword, Recover, Abyssal Lunge. Dex entry: the hatred of those who perished by the sword's edge was bound to the snow, giving birth to this Pokémon.
Hearing Rotom Dex's explanation, both Lily and Leaf looked a little unsettled.
Born from the hatred of those slain by swords? That's disturbing, Leaf muttered.
If Dylan knew what they were thinking, he'd have said it wasn't strange at all. That was exactly what the treasures of ruin were.
Manifestations of negative emotions. Qianpa from hatred and resentment of the slain, Wuqian from the fear of ancient curses, Qiyu from jealousy born of endless conflict, and Tinglu from the grudge of those punished for recording the king's sins.
Disaster was never a word meant to sound kind, and neither were these Pokémon. Qianpao. The snow leopard growled lowly, its voice rasping and sharp. Now, no need to be so aggressive. Is that how you treat the one who just freed you from centuries of confinement? Dylan said with an amused smile. How long has it been since you were sealed away? You probably don't even remember.
The world's changed a lot since then.
I saved you, you could at least show some gratitude, maybe even devote yourself to me?
At those words, Qianpao's eyes grew even colder, and the air temperature dropped sharply.
Qianpao.
It lunged forward, fangs bared. Quite the wild one, Dylan murmured thoughtfully.
Not all Pokémon in this world were inherently good. Take Yveltal, for example, a Pokémon embodying death and destruction.
Some were simply born with a darker nature.
The treasures of ruin were the same, born from negativity itself. Still, that was fine. Evil or not, they could be trained. Controlled. Guided. Dylan never liked suppressing his Pokemon's nature. But with beings like Yveltal or the Treasures of Ruin, leaving them unchecked would only bring catastrophe.
Terrapagos, give our new friend a proper welcome. At his signal, Terrapagos moved forward. Even in its second form, it was easily powerful enough to handle Qianpao, especially since the leopard was still weakened after being sealed for centuries.
The battle didn't last long.
The capture, however, took more time. All right, on to the next one, Dylan said, turning the luxury ball containing Qianpao in his hand.
The Treasures of Ruin were far too dangerous.
Even sealed, someone could accidentally unleash them someday. Better that he take them all into safekeeping. A shame, though, if he'd had Qianpao back when he fought Lance, that battle would have been even more thrilling.
For an ice type, Qianpao was remarkably strong.
Reshiram's wings spread wide, the white dragon soaring gracefully toward the next shrine.
By the time Dylan returned to Mesagoza, dusk had fallen. Dylan!
At the academy gate, a cheerful voice called out. The girl's eyes sparkled as she ran up to him.
Nimona, you seem in high spirits, Dylan said with a smile. My ranking's up to 17th. I think I'll be challenging the Masters soon.
Nimona grinned brightly, her energy contagious.
That's impressive. But if you're aiming to challenge me, you'll need to keep pushing, Dylan said warmly.
It wasn't surprising. As the prodigy protagonist of Scarlet and Violet, Nimona's talent and strength were exceptional. Reaching the Masters was well within her grasp, though even for her, climbing any higher wouldn't be easy.
Chapter 470, I am the champion of this continent. So this is the challenger facing Chairwoman Gita today, huh?
Nimona's gaze quickly landed on Red, and her eyes immediately sparkled.
Red. Hi. I'm Nimona, a student at Naranja Academy. I'm a pretty strong trainer myself. Let's battle sometime, okay?
Nimona jogged right up to Red, her bright eyes shining with excitement. To her, battling was pure joy. As long as she could face a strong trainer, all her worries vanished. Red stayed silent, though a faint light flickered in his red eyes.
He nodded slightly, he could sense it.
Nimona shared that same love for battle that burned within him.
How fitting. He loved battling most of all. Good luck on your match against Chairwoman Gita. Hearing Red's simple response, Nimona beamed and raised a fist in encouragement. Champion Nimona, shouldn't you be cheering for me instead?
A calm, mature voice sounded from behind.
Without anyone noticing, Gita had appeared a short distance away. Haha, Chairwoman Gita's so strong, you don't need my cheering.
Nimona rubbed the back of her head, smiling sheepishly. It was true, she was Paldea's honorary champion, part of the Paldea League itself. Naturally, she should have been cheering for Gita in this match. But Red is very strong as well, Gita said with her usual warm, graceful smile.
I can't say I'm confident. Really? Nimona blinked in surprise.
She had already battled Gita twice, once the year before last, and once last year, and both times, she had managed to win. But even then, Nimona could tell that Gita hadn't fought her at full strength.
Then after your battle with Chairwoman Gita, fight me next, Red. I really want to battle a strong trainer. Right, Juliana? Nimona's excitement overflowed as she nudged Juliana with her elbow. For her, the result didn't matter, the fight did. Juliana gave an awkward look. Dylan couldn't help but chuckle at Nimona's energy. Classic Nimona, so very Nimona.
Hee, I understand how excited you are, Gita said gently. But as the hosts, we can't be rude.
Save that for later, all right? Okay, Nimona said, pouting a little. I've already prepared rooms for all of you to stay in.
Dylan, everyone, please, come with me. Since they were in Mesagoza, there was no need to stay in a hotel. The prestigious Naranja Academy had more than enough dorm rooms, and it was a perfect chance to experience its culture firsthand. Dylan had once attended an elite Pokemon Academy in Kanto, but compared to Naranja, the difference in both history and faculty was vast.
Just how prestigious was Naranja Academy?
Well, its chairwoman was none other than Gita, Paldea's top champion, and the first of the Paldea Elite Four, Hassel, was its art teacher. That alone said enough. Even Stephen and the others were staying on campus, which only boosted the academy's fame further.
2 days later, Mesagoza Battle Arena. Every seat in the arena was packed, the air electric with excitement. This is the liveliest I've ever seen the arena, it's amazing. Juliana sat with her friends alongside Principal Clavel and the Naranja staff, looking around with wide eyes.
You'll have your turn too one day, Clavel said with a warm smile.
And when that time comes, we'll be cheering for you. He believed in both Juliana and Nimona, their talent and drive were undeniable.
Someday, they would surpass even chairwoman Gita.
Hey, you've got good eyes, Principal. Of course we will. Nimona said confidently, slinging an arm around Juliana's shoulder.
Clavel chuckled, pushing up his glasses.
As the announcer declared the trainer's entrance, both Red and Gita emerged from opposite tunnels, stepping into the bright, roaring arena.
Gita wore her signature tailored suit, black with fine yellow streaks, her matching shoes polished to a mirror shine. Red, on the other hand, was dressed in his familiar jeans, jacket, and cap. The crowd erupted as they appeared.
Let's go, Red.
Beat her and claim the number 6 master spot.
Chairwoman Gita will crush him. Who does that Kanto elite think we are, Unova or Kalos? Gita. Show that elite the true power gap between you. Our champion won't let us down. Ha! That's what people said before Iris and Serena lost too. Even the livestream chat was chaos. That's the Red from Kanto? To challenge Gita of all people, gutsy move.
A cheerful woman with a high ponytail, Ryfort, the academy's battle instructor, watched curiously.
Impressive. Hassel, you're an Elite Four member too.
Why don't you ever do that? She teased the artistic man beside her with golden half-length hair.
You give me too much credit.
The Kanto Elite Four are on another level, Hassel said seriously. True, Miriam, the pink-haired, fair-skinned nurse said softly, propping her chin on her hand.
And Red's no ordinary elite either, he even defeated Kalos's former champion, Diantha.
I wonder if Chairwoman Gita can withstand this challenge, she added with a note of concern.
She'll be fine.
Even if she loses, it just means the opponent was stronger, Nimona said casually. It's not quite that simple, Clavel replied, frowning slightly. After consecutive losses to Leon and Lance, Gita's reputation, and Paldea's by extension, had already taken a hit. If she lost again, Paldea's standing in the world would surely drop even further, perhaps to the level of Unova and Kalos, those unfortunate siblings.
For someone as proud of Paldea as Clavel, the thought stung.
But there was nothing he could do now but hope Gita would shine today.
On the field. The battle will now begin.
The challenger, Red from the Kanto region.
The defender, Chairwoman Gita of Paldea. The format, full battle, 6 vs 6. Both trainers may use 2 forms of power-up. The battle ends when one side's Pokemon are all unable to fight. If the challenger wins, he will ascend in rank. Begin. The referee announced the rules, bowed slightly, and stepped back.
Only Red and Gita remained on the field. The screen's pointer spun rapidly, landing on Gita.
She would move first.
So the time has finally come, Gita said softly, still wearing her graceful smile as she raised her gloved hand, the Pokeball expanding in her palm.
Ever since the World Championships began, I've been expecting this day. You young trainers are far too talented to stay in anyone's shadow for long.
Compared to her matches with Leon and Lance, this felt different. They were her peers, Red was the new generation. Red tilted his head slightly, the shadow of his cap hiding his eyes. As a senior, I take pride in seeing gifted, remarkable successors like you, Gita said gently, placing a hand over her chest. Then her tone shifted.
But that alone isn't enough. Red, you'll have to defeat me first. Her blue eyes locked onto him. Simply standing before her wasn't enough. That was only the beginning.
Red's eyes burned with quiet fire. He could feel it, her fighting spirit. All trainers in Paldea strive to reach the champion level. That's the shared dream across this land, Gita declared, her voice rising.
And I, Gita, the top champion of Paldea, stand at the very peak of that dream.
Her right hand lifted high, the poke ball gleaming in the light. Yes, she was still Paldea's strongest champion. Even Nimona and Juliana, as talented as they were, hadn't surpassed her yet. Red, as one of Kanto's Elite Four, show me your strength and your talent.
Let us have a battle worthy of legends.
With a smooth motion, Gita threw her pokeball.
My lead, Glimmera.
White light flashed, and a cone-shaped Pokemon floated before her, unfurling like a crystalline flower.
Glimmera, huh? Red's expression sharpened as he recognized the rock and poison-type Pokemon.
Blastoise.
Without hesitation, Red sent out his partner.
The massive turtle landed with a heavy thud, tilting its head and glaring menacingly at Glimmera.
Opening with Glimmera looks like Gita's going all out, Dylan said from the stands with a faint smile.
She'll have to.
Red isn't an opponent you can take lightly, Steven added quietly.
Dylan, do you think Red can beat her? Leaf asked curiously, eyes fixed on the field.
If you ask me, Dylan replied, I'd say yes, Red will win.
So confident? Leaf tilted her head.
Gita was one of the strongest champions out there.
Of course.
Red's one of my Elite Four, after all.
Dylan grinned. Well, if you're that sure, then I guess there's nothing to worry about, Leaf laughed. She glanced from the maturing young man in the cap on the field to Dylan beside her, and her smile only grew sweeter.
Not bad at all.
Her taste in people really was impeccable. Back on the SSN, she had picked two true prodigies, both absolute legends. That wraps up this part of What If Transmigrated as a Kanto gym leader.
Thanks so much for listening.
As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well.
See you in the next one.